Life is full of transitions, and a big transition for me was the shift from college to seminary. Now, I went from the very fun but not overly religious Penn State main campus to pre-theology philosophy studies at St. Paul Seminary and Duquesne. I had 1 week off between the end of my time at Penn State and the start of my time at St. Paul's. Now, adjusting to seminary meant an awful lot of changes from being an undergraduate at main campus to being a seminarian. And that meant the surrender of certain freedoms, limited visits with my family, and a distinct shift in how we used language. Now, not only was swearing and harsh language completely off limits now, but we had to learn a new language fit for seminary, and I call it churchese. Now, you'd think after growing up in church and spending a lot of time in church, you'd learn churchese, but it's a language that gets more and more complicated the deeper you get. For example, in seminary, if you were told that you had a formation issue or an FI, it had nothing to do with your physical construction or the shape of your nose, but everything to do with some real or perceived personality flaw that the rector or staff would make sure to iron out of you. Formation issue. Now, another strange term popped up in my first year in seminary as we celebrated our first Ash Wednesday at St. Paul's. The priest who gave the sermon that day told us to pursue a properly penitential Lent. Properly penitential Lent. What on earth is that supposed to mean? Wishing somebody a happy Lent is kind of weird too, right? Comes off the tongue kind of strangely. But what is properly penitential? I suspect that the priest was encouraging us to rigorously and seriously pursue the excavation of our deepest sin and our darkest moral failing, that our confessions would be complete, that we would forget nothing in the confessional, and that the fullest measure of sacramental grace would be dispensed to us. That's more churchese for you really need to feel awful about yourself for this to work, right? Now, words are funny things, and context changes their meaning. I sometimes describe the Episcopal Church to non-religious friends as being something like a Reese's cup. We can look pretty Roman Catholic on the outside, which is why some Protestants don't trust us completely. But take a bite and you'll see that we've got peanut butter filling on the inside. That means Protestant theology, Reformed theology. Now, and if you really had your coffee tonight, you'll see where I'm going with this, because Catholic chocolate, Protestant peanut butter, that's how you'll remember it. We're kind of like a Reese's cup. We've retained Catholic practice, but with a reformed heart on the inside. With that distinction in mind, if you can think of anything else but candy right now, what does a properly penitential Lent mean to us as Episcopal Christians? It's true that we'll spend time tonight and over the coming weeks seeking deeper insight into our spiritual lives, asking God to open our eyes to those places where we are broken and hurting, breaking and hurtful. In that sense, properly penitential does mean being honest, admitting that the pretty lies that we tell to the mirror in order to prop up the ego of our false selves is just that, pretty lies. But here's where the road splits in the wood. Here is where the peanut butter filling comes in. Down one path, the truth of our moral poverty leads to self-loathing and a fear of God. But down the path that we're called to, that path leads to an unvarnished and unflinching truth that leaves us breathless at the amazing mercy and forgiveness that our God has for us in Jesus. The utter completeness of his love. not just in some vague theological church-ese sense, but personally. That mercy and forgiveness is for you. My friends, you are what you are, and I am what I am. And God has forgiven us completely. Completely. For us, the road we've taken, a deeper acceptance of our own brokenness, only leads us into deeper gratitude and joy. Not fear of God, but appreciation for what He actually has done for us. Proper penance, or being properly penitential, understood in the light of the gospel, is exactly this: honesty that leads to gratitude, that leads to love. You can't really celebrate Easter until you know what God actually did for you, the real you, the you that exists beyond the lies we tell ourselves in the mirror. My friends, as we begin this Lenten journey together, be courageous. Trust God's mercy in Jesus. May the coming days open our eyes to the full truth and open our lives to the joy that it brings. Oh, and don't give up candy for Lent. Life is short, and candy is good.